Alright, today we are comparing Toy Story 3 with the hopefully not too forgotten late 80s The Brave Little Toaster. And why are we comparing these two, you're probably wondering?
Good question.
Well, let's say the plots. The Brave Little Toaster is about a little boy who has inanimate objects that come to life when nobody's around. But he grows up and he moves out on his own and they get abandoned. So they go on a journey by themselves to go find him and reunite with him. But on the way, they get into some misadventures that leads them to a junkyard where they're almost killed. Toy Story 3 is about a little boy who owns inanimate objects who come to life when nobody's around, and he grows up and goes his own way, and they go on a journey to find him, and they get into some misadventures that lead them to a junkyard where they're almost killed.
Wow. I did not know that. Was so, mirror image of the other one.
So, yeah. I would like to see which one, after looking back again, is better between the two. As you know, well, probably not, but The Brave Little Toaster actually wasn't originally Disney. It screened at Sundance, and I think somebody at Disney saw it and bought it. And, of course, Toy Story 3 is Disney and Pixar, and won 2 Oscars. So needless to say, Toy Story 3 has since become this phenomenon to the point that Brave Little Toaster's kind of been forgotten, which is a shame. So, like last time, I'm going to go through 6 different aspects and compare them, and one of them will be crowned, I guess. The first thing I want to compare is the leads, which are would be Woody versus the Toaster. So, the thing about it is, with the Toaster, he's got, well, let me start off by saying this has actually been a bit controversial because the Toaster sex it's confirmed in the movie, but only if you listen really closely. There's a scene where they have to go across, they're using Kirby's cord, and they have to go across a waterfall, but the Toaster falls in, and the lamp screams, "Where is he?" And the pronoun he in that one scene is the only time the sex of the Toaster is established, because they're supposedly, I think they just have a really nice relationship, but obviously everybody likes to make it out that the Toaster and the electric blanket are gay. And if you watch the movie, you can kind of see where people are coming from with that, but on top of that, the Toaster is actually voiced by a woman. So that's why what exactly the Toaster is has always been a mystery. That's the, so despite having that in his character, the Toaster isn't much of a standalone character, because Woody is often in his own thing, especially in this one, and he's a really established character, whereas the Toaster doesn't really stand out as much because they're all kind of a group as one through the whole movie. Except, there are times where, obviously the Toaster is kind of, the main focus, and he's basically the Woody of this group.
Okay.
But he's not, he doesn't have as many, standout personality traits, or is quite as memorable as what, obviously a lot of this falls on Tom Hanks, too, and everything he was able to do with the voice acting, so, yeah, it's nothing against the Toaster at all, it's just, they're more of a group, whereas Woody can be a standalone character.
Yeah.
Especially for a majority of the movie like he is. So, in the case of the lead character, that point would go to Toy Story. But next kind of brings in the others. Like, it's actually not just Toy Story 3 that seem to have taken inspiration from the Brave Little Toaster. The next would be the side characters.
Okay.
Which would be, pretty much in this would be, you know, all of Lotso's cronies. And here you have, there's two sets. There are, when they finally track down their master, he has, like, obviously they're kind of outdated. They're from his childhood. The master has new appliances that are, like, more within the times.
Okay.
Because these are from when he was a kid, and now that he's an adult, these are they're more, like, elaborate.
Okay.
But there's another set that kind of takes from, there's hints of Toy Story and Toy Story 2. Remember, I think the guy's voiced by Wayne Knight in Toy Story 2. He's the one that, like, collects them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that has Jessie and the Prospector and all that. He's a guy that collects, he finds them in the woods, and he sells, like, parts from things.
Okay.
Assorted parts. And, he brings them in, and they make these composite appliances. Like, there's, they do this whole great number that compares them to a Frankenstein movie. That's really great.
Nice.
And B movies in general, like Vincent Price is brought up in that song too. And that's a lot like Sid's Toys.
Okay.
It reminds you a lot of that. So, yeah, so comparing those side characters with the one specifically in Toy Story 3, since that's the one we're using here, there are a lot of side characters everybody loves in Toy Story 3, like Ken gets a lot of big laughs, and Mr. Pricklepants. There's, I guess Lotso himself, too.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of great backstory, and I also love the clown. Like the really jaded clown that tells the story.
Yeah. Stephen Wright as a clown.
But that's the thing. That's the thing is the Brave Little Toaster actually gets some advantages over Toy Story 3 because Brave Little Toaster can be more fantastical because it's a musical.
Okay.
And Toy Story's not. So the I actually find they're funny characters, but they're not as. There's some that are creative, like the peas in the pod and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what they did with the idea itself of the new appliances being, you know, the bee's knees now
Mm-hmm.
over the old ones is a great plot point. On top of the fact of the creativity they do with the composite appliances, and that awesome song that they do. The new appliances also do a song, but it's not as memorable as this one.
Okay.
And it's just a really weird scene too. Like I don't know. Like it's like this thing comes down from a cord and it talks to them, and it's like she says in the song what all she is, but it's she's like a lamp and she's a shaver and she's a can opener all in one, and then she just like dies.
What?
She just falls over and a cord comes down and picks her up and just carries her off, and it's really bizarre.
Very much so.
So, despite the fact that Toy Story 3 has some great side characters, I also got to point out the bookworm voiced by Richard Kind.
Yes.
That's a funny one. But the side characters in the Brave Little Toaster I found to be infinitely more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Brave Little Toaster will get the point on the side characters. Now, given that they're animated and they're Disney, this is pretty much a key thing here. The next category is which one is funnier.
Okay.
Like I was talking about in the Monsters University review, Pixar actually has a very clever sense of humor. Like, they can do some childish things, but for the most part, their humor is very, you know, smart and clever and stuff like that. Whereas, the weird thing about the Brave Little Toaster is, at least as far as my memory goes, as serious and as dark as the Brave Little Toaster gets, pretty much all of the humor is... They don't really go for wit or clever. It's more kid-oriented humor, like, throughout. Like, I guess there's some humor in the same with the composite appliances, but for the most part, when it's actually being funny, it's more child-oriented humor.
Yeah.
Whereas Toy Story and Pixar humor is all of the above.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I guess, you know, just based on that, Toy Story gets that point. But, this next one is really, really tough. Next one would be which one has the best voice cast. Which is fair because I say Brave Little Toaster has the advantage because it's a musical. Thus it can be more...
Fantastical.
The thing is, though, is the Brave Little Toaster's cast list is about this big.
Mm.
The list of recognizable names in Toy Story 3 has got to be, like, this long.
Yeah.
Like, there's... Well, you got the returning characters from the other movies, plus you have, like, Flotso as Ned Beatty, which was... If ever they gave out an Oscar for voice performance, like maybe once every 5 years or something. Plus, there's Richard Kind as the Bookworm. There's Michael Keaton as Ken. Whoopi Goldberg is the Purple Octopus.
Yeah.
Not many people know that. And there's Bonnie Hunt as Dolly, and Jeff Garlin's the unicorn. I can't remember his name. Buttercup. Yeah, like I said, whoever that genius is that's voicing the jaded clown. Brave Little Toaster, on the other hand, does have some recognizable names in it, but not as much. Like, I can't remember the names of the people that do the Toaster and the Blanket. But, Kirby is Thurl Ravenscroft, who is Tony the Tiger, and he sings the Grinch song from the animated movie.
Original ghost host in the Haunted Mansion.
The lamp is Tim Stack. The radio is John Lovitz, which is another brilliant casting choice, because John Lovitz just has that voice.
Yeah.
And Phil Hartman has two parts. He is the air conditioner at the beginning, and then at the parts store, he is a lamp. And when he's the air conditioner, he's doing his Nicholson impression. And then he's a hanging lamp at the parts store. And his face is modeled after it, you can tell. He's doing Peter Lorre. Which also goes in with the monster movie theme of that whole segment. Which, by the way, they were like all in the Groundlings at the time this was made. And the way I understand it is Phil Hartman and John Lovitz did their voice work for this, and then just like 2 weeks later did their first day of SNL.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess if you want to base it on not only voice performance, but, you know, the casting itself, I really, really, really didn't want to have to do this. But you know what's coming.
Yeah.
This category is a draw. There's no other way to do it. So I don't know if you want to give them both points, or if you just want to, I guess they'll just stay the way they are. Regardless,
we'll see.
You know. Next is an interesting category because it's a little strange to say, but when you see the movies, when you see the movies, you know what I mean. The next category is most heartbreaking junkyard scene. Let me tell you about Toy Story, and then I'll tell you about Brave Little Toaster. Everybody knows the scene in Toy Story 3. They're on the conveyor belt, and they can't get off, so they fall into the trash, and they're all in there together. And they try to fight their way out, and then they give up, and they're on their way into this incinerator. And Woody's the last one to give up, because you see that look on Buzz's face, it just says, like, dude, this is it. So they all grab each other's hands, and they just brace themselves for death. Until they're saved by the aliens, of course.
Yeah.
And that scene really, really gets to people.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me tell you about the Junkyard scene in Brave Little Toaster, because I'm sure people who have seen this movie a long time ago remember it, but they don't remember or ever caught the subtext. It's another song. It's they're mainly in a junkyard for cars. It's just stacks and stacks of cars that are about to be crushed.
Okay.
They do a song called Worthless, and the song Worthless is about accepting death.
Yeah.
So, this giant magnet with these really creepy eyes comes and picks them up, puts them on the conveyor belt, and they go into this... the crusher looks like a giant mouth, and it crushes them. They sing as they're going on the conveyor belt and going into death. And then they are crushed into these tiny cubes, killing them, basically.
Yeah.
Because when they were cars, they were alive, believe it or not. But the thing is not only is this, when you listen to the lyrics, it's a song about accepting death, but it's played up like the magnet is the Grim Reaper, because it's real. When we first see him, he like comes out of the shadows or out of the fog.
Okay.
And then when you go into the crusher, the crusher is the inevitability of death. And there's even a part where like the whole thing about marriage is either, you can take this one of two ways. You can take it as marriage is, just the death of somebody, or you can take it as, just marriage is like, till death do us part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the magnet picks up a like a limo for a Texan wedding.
Yeah.
And drops it, and then it picks up a hearse, and the limo for the wedding and the hearse are crushed into the same cube. Yeah, there's symbolism out the asshole in that ending.
Wow.
And then, of course, most importantly, I don't know anymore, but back in the day, this scene apparently was actually taken out when it played on regular TV. At the end of the song, there is a green truck, and it's got like this depressed look on its face, and the magnet's coming for it. But then, before the magnet can pick it up, it drives off by itself and puts itself on the conveyor belt and goes into the machine, which is a symbol for suicide. So, like cheating the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
Wow.
Shedding a few tears over the toys that were eventually saved, or the cars that represent impending death? Believe it or not, Toy Story fans, Brave Little Toaster takes this point. So, and we're already almost done here. We're almost 20 minutes in only, but this next one's kind of big. It's the last one. Just on a general level, the most emotional one, because it's not just the junkyard scenes. Both movies have emotional scenes throughout.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where, the core of Disney animated movies is what emotions they can make you feel. So let's compare some of those.
Okay.
Like, apart from the junkyard scenes, in Toy Story we have, I suppose the first big one is the opening scene where we hear "You Got a Friend in Me Again."
Oh, yeah.
And we see Andy growing up through the home videos. And the dog, I forget his dog's name. I think it's something really generic, like Buster or something.
I think it actually is Buster, honestly.
And he's like, really old and fat now. Then there's the scene where we see Andy's packing his toys as to what's going to go in the attic and what's going to go to college with him. And he has Woody and Buzz in his hands. And when you see the movie for the first time, it's quite a surprise. He puts Woody in the college box and throws Buzz in the attic toys.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, and you see the look of disbelief on Buzz's face right before the bag closes. Then there's, even though he's a huge villain, Lotso's backstory is pretty sad.
Yeah, definitely. Like
when the big baby has like the heart, and he like says she doesn't love you anymore, and all that, and then of course the ending. This floor is very creaky. I hope people don't think I like have stomach problems. It's the floor creaking. I'm sorry. They're talking about the ending with Andy giving the toys to Bonnie, and he
Yeah.
plays with them one last time. And when that scene doesn't have you enough of a wreck, everybody shed at least one tear when Woody watched Andy drive off, and he said the "so long, partner" line.
Yeah, no lie.
There's a few scenes that Bray Little Toaster has to offer too. I will start with the least and then go to the most. The one, I think this is a little melodramatic, but the thing about Phil Hartman's air conditioner at the beginning is everybody's oblivious. They always think the Master's coming back.
Yeah.
But the air conditioner's the one that's the Master's not coming back. He forgot about us, and he's pissed off, and he gets so pissed off that he malfunctions and like is almost set ablaze, and he just basically dies.
Wow.
But the very ending of the movie, after the Master has gotten them back, he goes back to the house and he fixes the air conditioner, and it comes back on. And then after he walks away, the air conditioner's eyes open, and he sees that the Master actually came back and fixed him. And I think this is a little melodramatic, but you actually see tears in the air conditioner's eyes.
Wow.
Like, I mean, it's a nice moment, but I think the look on the air conditioner's face would have been enough without it actually crying.
It actually has to cry.
This is emotion in a different way, this one.
Okay.
This scene never bothered me when I was a kid, but from what I've seen around, this is the scene that everybody remembers, and it freaked them the hell out. There is a scene where they stop for camp for the night, and the Toaster has a nightmare. Where he and the Master are really happy. The Master, like, fixes toast, and he makes faces in the toaster and all that.
Yeah.
But then the toaster starts to catch fire, and smoke fills the room, and the Master's gone. And this firefighter with a giant hose comes up, and the firefighter is a creepy-ass clown. And for some reason, he's holding a fork. I guess because when you stick forks in toasters is what, makes them...
Yeah.
So he's got a hose, and he's got a fork.
Ooh.
And he's spraying water at the toaster, and the water turns into a shitload of forks. And then suddenly, he's got this thing where he's hanging on like a shower rod in a full bathtub.
Mm.
And as he's holding on for dear life and then dropping into this tub where he's going to electrocute and die, you hear this clown just laughing, and it's really creepy.
Wow.
And then the toaster wakes up.
Good God.
And mostly, there's this... The scene is by itself on YouTube, I think, and there are comments saying that it's like one of the saddest things I've ever seen, and the scene is like maybe 50 seconds long. It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, and it never comes back. It's just one little scene in the middle of the movie, and it just kills people.
Okay.
There's a really funny scene where they stop by a pond and interact with all the animals there. And these squirrels are getting a kick out of seeing their reflection in the toaster. So they're chasing him around, because he's getting tired of it by now. So he hides behind a bush, and the squirrels run off, and he loses them. But he turns around, and there's this one flower just out in the middle of nowhere by itself. And the toaster walks up to it, and then the flower sees its reflection of itself in the toaster. And basically falls in love with it. Falls in love with its own reflection because it thinks it's another flower.
Mm-hmm.
But then the toaster backs up and says, "No, I'm not a flower." But the flower still comes after him anyway. And the toaster runs off. And kind of hides for a second. And then when he turns around and looks back at the bush to see what the flower's doing, because of the heartbreak of being alone, it's wilting and dying.
Wow.
So, that's, this is a battle to the death between these two, really.
In more ways than one.
So,
Yeah.
So, that's... Basically, it's the flower thing versus Andy leaving. is what it comes down to.
That's tough.
The thing, though, is the Andy thing is bittersweet because they are left with Bonnie.
Yeah.
So, that flower thing is just... That's just... You look how happy the movie looks by the cover. This movie is hopeless. This movie's all about hopelessness and loneliness.
Such a great uplifting title, too, and the great cover that we're looking at right here.
Not to mention that...
everybody's all happy.
Not to mention there were a couple of sequels where he came to the rescue and went to Mars.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the sequels.
I haven't seen the sequels yet, but I'll catch them out of curiosity at some point. I'm pretty sure they don't have the depth of this. So I'm pretty sure they were, no offense, since this was its own movie before Disney bought it, I'm going to guess the sequels are Disney-fied and not like this.
Actually, what I was reading on IMDb a little bit ago, just checking like trivia on the movie, since obviously I've never seen The Brave Little Toaster. I don't know how I missed it, but I'd never seen it. And I've seen Toy Story 3 numerous times.
And the others.
Yeah, I've seen all the Toy Story movies numerous times. So I couldn't personally compare these two myself. But what I was reading in the notes was the fact that, yeah, it was at Sundance, and John Lasseter himself wanted to direct The Brave Little Toaster for Disney. And it was when he was working for Disney before he started Pixar. He basically had the idea for it, and Disney pretty much said, no, they're not going to go with it. So eventually ended up leaving Disney, and he started Pixar. And it's kind of funny because the same year that this came out, which was in September of 1987, September 19th, I think, something like that. My dates are probably wrong, but I know it's September 1987. I was 6 years old. There was a...
I was not even a thought.
No, probably not. There was... It actually premiered on the Disney Channel the same year that it was at Sundance. So I read that a little bit ago, too. So it's really interesting how there's a lot of comparisons between the two. And John Lasseter is a big comparison between the two. Apparently the Master's... his apartment building... The actual apartment number was A113,
yeah.
which is more Pixar connection. So, I mean, since Lasseter created Pixar, and that was pretty much going to be his unofficial first movie with Disney, and his unofficial first Pixar movie, which ended up not being Pixar, basically it's kind of funny that little PS that's been used throughout the years and all the other Pixar movies got brought in first with Brave Little Toaster.
So...
I found that interesting, actually, just reading it a little bit ago.
So I gotta say, given the bittersweetness that Toy Story 3 brings us, and the...
Do we get a happy ending in The Brave Little Toaster?
Yeah, but, you know, the cars don't get a happy ending, that flower doesn't get a happy ending, that stuff is not resolved. That's just stuff we have to deal with.
Yeah.
The most emotional point has to go to The Brave Little Toaster, thus making it win this thing. Which... I don't know, maybe you have qualms about that, but...
I've never seen the movie, so I can't say anything about it.
You know, watch them again. I mean, Toy Story 3 definitely has, you know, all this going on, but I feel like The Brave Little Toaster, even having however many years before it was, really goes... I feel like Toy Story 3 is pretty, you know, emotional, but
yeah, definitely.
I feel like when you watch something that has the depth of The Brave Little Toaster, Toy Story 3 almost starts to come off melodramatic. So, you know, because there's a thing like they tease you like, oh my god, the toys almost died, but they're happy now and they're safe with Bonnie.
Yeah.
Those cars are dead.
Yeah.
And they gave you the most depressing, hopeless song they could sing you on their way out.
Yeah.
So, and what's the thing I didn't mention about that was, every car as they're going on the conveyor belt, they're singing about all the places they saw when they were driven and stuff like that, and where they're from.
Yeah.
What shows you that no matter who you are or what you've done in life, everybody's going to the same place.
It's true.
Which is what that whole song...
Symbolism, wow, that's insane.
So yeah,
For a kids movie in 1987, that's insane.
about a fucking toaster.
Yeah, I know. He looks so happy in that pic. Look at these pictures. Do you viewers out there, do you look at these DVD covers, which I love this setup now. It looks a lot better than
This is
last
actually
time.
misleading because look how happy Lotso looks.
Yeah.
he he didn't try to kill them at all.
No, not at all. And I mean, look at the brave little toaster.
Yeah,
look
this
at everybody in
adventure
there.
over here is so happy. The whole
Yeah, everyone looks so happy and loved and played with, and
oh, when they're first going through the forest, they sing this nice little cheesy song, and it's all happy. And
wow, did not realize that movie had that much depth to it.
a couple of them almost die too. The lamp gets struck by lightning.
Good lord.
The Kirby almost vacuums up his own cord. Shit gets real.
Good God.
The blanket flies off in a storm.
Holy crap.
They find him in a fucking tree. He was there all fucking night, too.
He's just bombing out. He's like, hey guys, you can go get me anytime you want.
So
Wow.
yeah, if you've never seen this or if you saw it like when you were 3, you've got to see it again and let all this run through your head.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not trying to tear down Toy Story in any way.
No.
It's just this movie not many people remember goes so far more under the surface than the Toy Story movies did. So
It's more of an even battle than last time. I mean, the result's about the same, but I mean, the way that everything was talked about, it seems like everything's a lot more balanced. And sometimes Versus is going to be like that, and sometimes it's going to be just a landslide, and sometimes it's going to be like to the death, which is what this was. I mean, I'd be really shocked if you give any draws, like, very often. I'm sure yourself you didn't want to give a draw either, but you had to.
yeah, that was kind of
Cop out.
well, you can't even really compare the two, really.
Yeah.
Like I said, Toy Story had the advantage because it has a list like this long, and this, is a little limited because there's less characters. I mean, look, just compare the number of characters just on the cover.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, very true. I see, 4 on the cover of Brave Little Toaster?
there should be 5, I think.
Oh.
The radio is 1, too.
Wait a minute, 1, 2. So what do we have? Because I'm trying to figure it out. It's a toaster, it's the lamp, it's the radio, it's the Kirby, and it's the blanket?
Yeah.
That's 5, okay. Then we got 45,000 on the front of Toy Story 3's cover.
So, that's it for that battle. Next week should be an epic one.
Oh, without question.
That's all I'm going to say about that one, so...